just like the Finance Committee, we had some vacancies. The nominating committee is recommended, and it'll be on the agenda for next week to approve of a number of planning committee members, including Commissioner Johnson and Commissioner Barkley.
Oh, okay.
In 1 week's time, you will be official planning committee members, but
All right.
right now, we don't have a quorum, but we have like a faux quorum.
Yeah, a faux quorum.
So,
And Patty's generally the chair?
well, actually, Mark Dighton was the chair. So we don't have a chair.
Okay.
We have a vice chair.
Yes, I know,
Yeah.
I heard.
You'll be the one.
I was not aware of that.
Is Patty coming?
She's in Tallahassee.
She's in Tallahassee.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, of course, I didn't bring my agenda, so,
There you go.
well, I have the paper agenda, but I don't have my online agenda.
So here, you
Um,
take this one, I'll put my
Yeah.
one out.
I have one.
You do? Okay.
So, we don't have anybody here to make public comment, do we? Can we look at the minutes from the January meeting?
With approval?
We can look at them, we can approve.
Yeah, we can't approve anyway, so, okay.
You can ask if there's any corrections.
Any corrections?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I was even here. So, I was here. Okay. Oh, we need to elect committee chairs, committee officers.
We won't be able to do that.
Oh, we can't do that either.
You could talk about it.
We can't do it.
You will be the,
Okay.
you will be the future one.
Let's see, who's not here? Okay. Why don't we wait till next
Yeah.
month to do that?
I think it's a good idea.
Okay. All right, well, Debbie, I guess we'll have the budget calendar and key assumptions then.
Thank you. This week is not only the first week of spring, it is the first week of budget season. It can't get any more exciting than that, unless you're talking about our CAFR at the last meeting for like an hour.
A national certified government finance person.
This is really, this is amazing time.
It's hard to contain the excitement.
Uh-huh.
As you know, here at PSTA, we take a very thoughtful process going through the budget, taking major components of it and reviewing it over the next several months, coming up with the first draft of the budget in June, taking the summer months to review, update based on information, presenting it back out for a final vote with 2 public hearings in September. The budget, of course, is a reflection of our strategic plan. We'd like to take a look not only at our next year's budget, but also at a multi-year plan. We take, in developing the budget, we take the forecast for this year and we build off of that. And it's important to do a multi-year budget. And the reasons being is it kind of gives us a good picture of our financial stability. We can look forward to see where we have gaps and where we need to improve our revenues or decrease our expenses, so there are no surprises. We mentioned at the meeting previously, before this, by doing this, no surprises, we're in a better financial situation than some of our sister agencies very close to us across the bay who have been having difficulty even making payroll. I don't ever want that to happen, which is why it's very important to take a very good look at what we have in the years ahead. You have some very good reading for the week in our very beautiful key assumptions package here that you have. We didn't print copies for you because I'm trying to save money on paper. I didn't even print it in color to save money. So we're trying to be fiscally responsible. But we've got 3 major sources of our revenues. As you know, our ad valorem tax, our passenger fares, and our operating assistance from federal, state, and local sources. The ad valorem tax, what we do is we take a look at what the county has projected and work off of that so we're consistent in how we do that, so that the percentages you see here are based on that minus a 0.2% for the fees that are involved. Passenger fare revenue, currently our one-way fare of $2.25 is very high compared to our peers. We offer a lot of discounts. It actually comes down significantly below that. With ridership declining, I'm actually at this point in time, I'm going to have a flat-based budget going forward. We've had some Very positive gains on routes where we've added service, but we've also we've talked about some ridership loss and revenue loss related to that. Operating assistance comes from basically two major areas: federal assistance and also state assistance from areas like the block grant, funding for specific routes. Now, one thing we did several years ago, I think maybe when we first started, is that we have money in our operating budget from the federal government from our formula funds, 5307. We want to make sure that that stays static, regardless of how much money the federal government gives us. We don't want to become reliant on it. So we've basically drew a line in the sand and said it'll be X number of dollars. Anything more than that goes towards capital reserve for our biggest project, which is buses. On the expenditure side, our salaries and fringes make up 60%. It's our biggest category that is out there for expenditures. About 10% less than what Hartz is at for the same category. And we have in the budget today about 3.5% going forward in there for both union and for non-represented employees. Health insurance, which is our biggest driver of benefits, I have up here at 10% going forward. Unfortunately, I met with our Gehring Group, which is our broker, who helps us with this, and that may be too conservative. We have, in the course of this year, and it happens cyclically, that we have a significant number of claims that are high claims. Approximately 62% of the cost of our claims are coming from 7% of our members. So we're going to be taking a look. It's a great year to go out for a bid on this. Because of this, we're going to take a look at what they call the minimum premium, which is self-insured partially with stopgap. We're going to take a look at being self-insured. We're going to take a look at such things as coming up with a base type of insurance, and you can either buy up or buy down in it. So we're going to try to find what's the best way of taking a look at this and kind of factor in, is this an anomaly for us since the last 4 or 5 years have been very static?
Madam Chair.
Yes, please, I'm sorry.
I don't know if this question is even relevant, but I wanted to ask it just so that we can understand. Our health insurance plans are through our bidded program, but are they in any way impacted by changes in the Affordable Care Act and the plan that's currently going through Congress? Will that be in any way impacted by that?
It might impact the way the premiums are set up. It doesn't impact us directly.
Okay.
That's in there. Our claims experience is what impacts our cost, along with, as I'm learning all this as we go as well. But when we put this out for bid, taking a look at what each carrier, how they want to spread the risk over their book of business. And that'll impact it as well. So the 10% may actually be 20% in our case. Our claims have gone up significantly over this past year. What we'll do is factor out any catastrophic claims and give them that information. I mean, we had 2 claims over $400,000 this past year.
Well,
So, and we're going through a wellness program.
That's an anomaly?
That's an anomaly.
Okay.
But we're doing quite a good wellness program, and we've actually seen, since we've implemented this over the last 2 months, the actual costs of the claims have gone down over the past 2 months. We hope that continues. We're all trying to lose weight and be healthy. Won't say how I'm doing, but expenditure assumptions. We've got diesel fuel, which is one of our key categories. I've got that going up slightly in fiscal 18. As you know, you've seen a trend out there on that, and kind of flat going forward. We have the ability to lock in now and multi-year, so I can actually start locking in for next year. We did not have that ability before. And then purchase transportation, the DART expenses, we already have, you know, that was a big contract we passed this year. So we already know what their percent increases will be in their costs. So we've contained it. We originally had last year at 10%.
Thank you.
Yes. Just jump in there when you.
Go back to the diesel fuel. As we implement more purchases of BAE transmission hybrid diesels, and as we implement our electric buses, is that factored into the diesel fuel consumption, or?
We will factor that actually into the budget like we did last year, looking at the makeup of our fleet and what we anticipate to buy in each of the years.
Okay.
And that will positively impact this.
Okay, thank you.
Supplies, we talked a little bit about this at finance today. You could see over the course of time that our supply costs have gone up. So we had a huge jump from last year to this year in our budget. And what we're projecting going forward is about a 4.6%, so double the inflation rate going forward. And you can tell from when Henry Lucchesa came here and really started a very good program of taking a look at our buses, understanding our bus needs, and putting forth a really good program to get these buses in great shape to not only last 12 years, but go up to 15 years or more. Any questions on the budget assumptions?
That last slide would have in part answered a question in the previous
Yes.
committee meeting in the CAFR about the increased maintenance line item.
Correct.
So-
It was increased inventory.
Yeah,
Right, we
inventory.
Parts.
increased inventory.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair?
And we need this as an action item, but we can't vote today,
Right. Yes.
correct?
This is an informational item.
Informational? Oh.
One
Maybe
of the
action.
questions I would
I
have
want
is,
some action today.
what personnel assumptions? Are there any personnel assumption
Yes.
changes?
Yes,
No, I mean,
Oh,
as far as staffing number.
we're actually going through that process right now of gathering that information to see if anybody has, would like additional staff or a reduction of staff. We actually last year had a reduction of staff within the whole authority as a whole. Again, taking a look at how to do things more effectively and efficiently. So I don't know of any specifically at this point in time.
But
If we
then
go to the
we
calendar.
added service in February, didn't we?
We did, and we put additional operators to that service, I believe, as well, correct? But it was in budget neutral?
Budget neutral.
Budget neutral.
The,
Let me go back to
The number of employees, the number of operators did increase with the February 1st start of the expanded service. We hired a bunch of drivers, but the net was even?
Yeah, I mean, we're losing 4 to 5 drivers a month through retirement. And, I think based on where we moved service around, it came out budget neutral.
the other personnel assumption, the one thing that I have seen that we have included in our strategic plan, but I don't know that we have implemented it, is the outreach to employers or the outreach to the public. Now, maybe we can't do that because we don't have favorable budget
We added
ability.
personnel this year, 2 positions specifically for that, one in Cindy's area, or are they both in your area? I can't.
There was just one
One.
additional position.
We had the other one was a replacement,
Yes.
yes.
Maybe they're out there doing it, I just haven't seen the
They are.
benefit
They're
of
everywhere.
They seem to be
their
hanging out in
outreach.
Oldsmont.
Bob's
I don't know.
everywhere, Juan's everywhere, he's got a new assistant, is it
Amanda.
Amanda?
It's easy to get lost in 920,000 people.
Yeah.
They just did, the 2 employees that Debbie was talking about just started, I think, in January or around then. But they're
They were replacements.
getting going.
They were vacant positions.
So what I was getting at is more the strategic salary or staffing headcount changes, and what I hear you saying is you're not proposing any this year.
I haven't heard, no, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying I haven't received any yet this year.
We've got it on the
Bringing
calendar to come back in
personnel.
April,
Mhm.
next month with
Oh, okay.
some of that discussion.
And our track committee last night was very enthusiastic about assisting us in the community outreach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great,
And
yes,
while we're on the budget calendar,
that's okay.
remind me again when we have our scheduled public hearings on the budget.
It'll be in September. And I want to say
Oh,
it's like
now I see it, I didn't see it on the slide. I didn't need an exact date, I was just
Okay.
looking for a ballpark.
When we do that, can we make sure we're not in conflict with the county or the cities?
We always
Have to.
do that every year, but when they change
Yeah.
the meeting dates on us, like last year.
It's a law not to be
That's a
confident.
Well, the county, we need to hold the county's feet to the fire so they don't change them at the last minute, and so we have conflicts. I mean,
Right,
There could be a
we're-
challenge this year, we're having budgeting software major problems, but
Okay.
we'll try not to be.
Well,
Conflicting.
it's just the conflict with the days. We should be able to work.
I do know that
Yeah, we
last
should.
year, last year, when we made some adjustments to the dates, which created some conflicts, we tried to be efficient by combining the second public hearing on the budget with the regular board meeting at the end of September. And I know this year, we're not planning on doing that. So this year, we'll have two standalone budget hearings at, what time, 6 o'clock?
No, they will both be in the evening, I believe, and one will be on September 13th, the other will be on September 27th, probably preceding the board meeting. No. is it?
No, because the September board meeting is going to be at 9 a.m. I know that.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
They're gonna be two separate
Okay.
We'll have two
standalone
separate-
public hearings,
hearings.
13th and
Hopefully 10 minutes
27th.
okay.
Yeah.
This is a very important document, or I know, at least in prior years, we've gotten into the details, especially on the capital decisions on buying buses, and our budget, and we look out at that 5-year projection and see where our project goes in, and lots of people question our assumptions at that point when they wonder exactly what's going on. This is what's going. These are the assumptions that are embedded in that bottom line forecast, looking out into the future. Of course, we're only approving a 1-year budget, but I know that the board. We have lots of discussions about the long-term impacts. So,
Which is good.
yeah, which is good.
The ad valorem percentage change, that's what the county is using?
8.
The county uses, that's what they're using, plus the .2,
Minus the point two.
minus the .2, rather.
We subtract 0.2
Right.
for St. Pete Beach and Treasure Island,
Mhm.
not in PSTA, that are in the county's number.
Minus 0.2% or minus?
Minus
2%.
0.2% of the increase. Historically, our ad valorem revenue has increased less than the counties as a whole, just because we don't have those two big.
So the
Big
county is using
pro-
5%? And
But we're using 8. Didn't you say 8?
What?
Didn't you say 8%?
No.
That's the 3-year
Oh.
average.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so 4.8, is the county using 5? 5.
Can I ask a question about that? How do we treat Bel Air Beach and Kenneth City who are not in?
Well, they're taking out 2,
They're
but they're
taking
not
out-
as big as.
Yeah, right, they're smaller, I know, but I mean, the difference is they're not getting service, whereas St. Pete Beach and Treasure Island are getting service. That's my question,
Right.
how we handle that.
This is a projection that the county puts in there, does some kind of detailed, I don't know how they do it, some analysis of the forecast of the future. And in the past, our ad valorem revenue has been slightly less than and has gone up or down slightly less than the county's rate, overall rate, because we are close to, but we're not exactly the same as the county, because we don't have Treasure Island, St. Pete Beach, Bel Air Beach, and Kenneth City.
Right, okay.
But it could be closer to 7 or 8%. We won't know that till 1 June.
July will be at the one.
Well, there's a
June,
preliminary that
June.
comes out in May.
Yeah.
Oh, June is the
Around
preliminary,
Memorial
yes,
Day.
but we don't vote till July.
Hopefully we move. Hopefully.
Any other questions for the assumptions? Thank you. Central Avenue BRT.
So this is a very exciting project for PSDA. I'm waking myself up every morning talking about how excited I am about this project.
Okay?
Yeah.
You know, when I learned that the premium trend study identified that there were 55 studies done in the Tampa Bay area to move transit forward, and this is the only one out of 55 that has actually moved forward. It's pretty good.
As Brad said, we're moving forward with the project, which is really exciting. We're still on track to meet our August submittal deadline to the Federal Transit Administration. And I think Brad and Cassandra met with staff when they were up in DC and confirmed, you know, that we're still on track and, you know, that we do need to continue to stay on pace. We are currently in the throes of the environmental analysis. So looking at the traffic, the historical resources in the corridor, and just really looking in detail what would be around the station locations and how the bus is treated in the corridor. We will be having some upcoming outreach at the end of April and early May, so we wanted to start sharing with you all what we will bringing forth to the public. This, if you recall, is the corridor that's being studied. It's from downtown St. Petersburg to St. Pete Beach and the Don Cesar. We have kind of narrowed down some station location options, and you'll see those in the upcoming slides. We have alternatives to these options in most locations, but we have to really look at specific locations so that we can do the required analysis. Some of the design and design considerations that you'll see in the next few slides include whether the bus is right or left side running in different sections of the corridor, whether it's in mixed traffic or it's in a bus-only lane. And a bus-only lane in this situation would involve people still being allowed to enter the lane to make turns, but for the through movement, it's bus-only. We also are looking at where we can use transit signal priority in the corridor and then how we would do that. That is a requirement from FTA. We're looking at how we accommodate the BRT within the existing right-of-way. How do we keep, there's a lot of things going on in this corridor. There's parking, there's bike lanes, there's narrow travel lanes. So how we accommodate all of that within the larger corridor, which would include the First Avenues and Central Avenue.
Can I just ask a question before you go on?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we transitioning to the right side between 16th Street and 20th Street? What is there that's on the way?
Well, we need to transition to the right side as we approach downtown because we need to make that turn onto 4th Street. And so that was a good place for us to transition.
Okay, so it stays on the right side then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Doesn't
and that was a
just
good
come
place
back.
to make the transition with the Tropicana Field site and
Okay.
just the activity in that area.
Maybe you back
I
up
was
a little bit.
imagining it for 4 blocks and then going back across,
Oh, no,
which
no.
sounds kind of dangerous.
Why the left side running is so important is because of the land uses on the First Avenue. So
Right.
that's why the city really would like us to stay on the left side, but we're maintaining that right side boarding so that we can use that lane for the rest of our fleet as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So looking specifically at different sections of the corridor, on Gulf Boulevard, you really wouldn't see much different than what's out there today other than new stations in the station areas. We would be in mixed traffic with stations in the areas of the Tradewind, Serrata, and then also the Don Cesar.
That's
and
assuming we
seven-
get,
Yeah.
Assuming we work things out with
Yeah.
the local funding.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that, we're right now just going across the bridge into St. Pete Beach and then turning around right there.
Well, we're studying the whole corridor.
Yeah, I understand.
So we're looking at the operations
But
of
if
the
they
whole
can't-
corridor.
If they can't get agreements, then.
Yes, correct.
We'll do just a U-turn.
Although that picture is Tradewinds, right?
Who has new
Yes.
owners, by the way?
What's that?
Who has new owners? I think they sold the hotel about
Mhm.
4 weeks ago.
I thought it was the
Serrata did, I think.
Serrata.
Oh, the
Oh,
Serrata,
yeah,
I'm
the
sorry,
Serrata.
I misspoke.
And the Don Cesar.
Mhm.
If we do the environmental clearance for the entire corridor, that gives those cities a few extra months to make their final decision.
Okay.
So we really need their final decision about whether they're gonna go want an extension beyond 75th and Gulf by the end of July, no later than, that is like the drop dead, because we're gonna have to put together this package in August.
Okay.
Then Pasadena Avenue, there's a couple of options for this corridor. There's, DOT is doing a corridor study, I think working with us and the NPO and coordinating various projects. There's a resurfacing project at some point. So we're talking with them, is there an opportunity to have the business access and transit lanes, which is the bus that allows the cars to make the right turns. So that's kind of a to be determined, and we'd like to work with them on the transit signal priority. Yes, sorry.
We talking to South Pasadena also about this, how it affects them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and we will also be coordinating, the county actually controls the signals in this section of the corridor, so we'll be coordinating and meeting soon with the county and South Pasadena and DOT, and just making sure we're all coordinating and we can get the best future situation in that corridor that the community supports.
So the city has been working on a road diet plan for the 6-lane section of South Pasadena. Road diet. So
It's
it's
an
when
interesting concept.
when you go from, so they have a 6-lane section, and they've been wanting to take this to a 4-lane section.
Oh, well, that's convenient.
And so this has been going on for a long time, and the department has been resistant to that because of the evacuation of, this is an evacuation route.
Right.
So if you make those 2 lanes that the city wanted to take for other landscaping or parking or whatever to reduce the number of travel lanes, but we made them business access and transit lanes, that does some of what the city wants to do, but also maintains the route as an evacuation route, so everybody wins.
Okay, cool.
As we move into the First Avenues, on First Avenue North, so headed toward the beach, we're kind of working backwards a little bit here. The roadway width is 49 feet, so that would require us to do a little bit of widening just around the station area and perhaps take a couple of parking spaces. We are looking at, in this section, basically between 20th and 66th, relocating, and we were talking with the city about this, the bike lane to Central Avenue, and we would put that in as part of this project. So the cost of restriping Central would be associated with the project. And the city is supportive of that. I guess there's a feeling that the bike lanes on the First Avenues don't feel safe to people regardless. They're pretty narrow and the cars are going by quickly. So we want to be forward with that. We're looking at, you can see here, Cassandra mentioned having the left side running but right side boarding. So having the bus lane moving over here and then a station being built on that side within special pedestrian treatments, to make sure people board and disembark in a safe manner and then cross the street if they need to. So that's kind of an overview of what that would look like in the corridor.
Is that actually going
Yeah.
additional right-of-way?
This is a little bit of right-of-way, yes, that's needed right here to fit the station area.
I thought it was running on the left.
This is heading from downtown to
Okay.
the beach.
Well-
Yes, I know, we're kind of, so we're headed west. The cars are
Central
flowing
Avenue
west.
is
We're
south.
moving from right to left. The bus is moving from right
Correct.
to left.
Correct.
Okay.
And this, you can see the right-of-way here, the sidewalk is still maintained. We don't have to get into any of that. The sidewalk is set back quite a ways from the roadway in that section.
So would the fare be done at the station rather than on the bus?
Well,
Have we
with
gotten to that point?
You mean fare collection?
Fare collection.
Fare collection is going all mobile app. Bill?
Okay, all mobile, okay.
No, Flamingo,
With
all
a
the
little
way.
cash allowed.
So the driver
That's
doesn't
probably not
actually-
true.
No.
Jeez.
And
It will
smart
be smart card and mobile app and cash.
So there will be
But we
some.
won't have any ticket vending machines or anything like that.
That hasn't been decided yet. Let's just say that.
We will not be having any ticket vending.
Working her will.
It's like.
So will there be just one entrance into the bus, or will there be multiple entrances?
Multiple?
one
Well,
entrance to the
There's
bus.
gonna be more than one door.
Yeah, exiting out the rear, like it's allowed now.
You can only get on.
Well, I mean, I think that's to be determined. I mean, in Austin, you can board in the middle and tap on. So, I mean, it's just, I think, part of the additional conversation about the vehicle.
A quick question, is the right-of-way acquisition part of our budget?
Yes, it will be. And there was some included in the previous estimates.
Okay.
This is pretty similar. The roadway is a little wider, so there's less modifications needed here. We don't need to do any widening to put the station in. So this one is still, oh yeah, this is, okay, sorry. That way, this is where we have no wait, I'm the wrong, okay. Now I went in the wrong direction.
Yes.
Sorry, this is 16th to downtown. And so you can see the bike lane is still maintained within this section of the corridor because it's wide enough to accommodate everything. Okay, now on First Avenue South, this is, did I miss one? Okay, First Avenue South, this is, we transitioned, like I said, between 20th and 16th to the right side. So now we're headed from this way. The bus is running this way. And so, again.
There's a big apartment complex there right now.
The,
At the 8th and First Avenue South.
Yeah.
It's just open, or maybe it's not even open.
so this is all filled now?
Is it
Yeah.
about to be?
It is.
Anyhow, so you can see how this fits in. There's a cycle track here. You can still fit in with the cycle track at the station, and then the right side boarding.
So in this case, the bus is going from left to right.
Yeah.
Yeah, between 20th and 16th, it transitions over to, and then there's also we don't have every single slide in here, every single section of the corridor. These are representative of how it looks in the sections that are similar to each other. As we're into downtown, we turn onto 4th Street and then head over to, now we're in mixed traffic on 4th Street.
Well, wait, no, wait.
We're
On
north
First Avenue
and south. I don't know where this is.
Yeah.
This is
4th
south.
Street South.
4th Street South, so we're
The
on
bus is
First
turning right.
Avenue South.
Downtown.
We make a right on
This
4th
is going
Street
down
South.
to USF St. Pete.
Goes down to
This is
USF
going
St.
down.
Pete, it goes to the Innovation District, again, mixed traffic. And then
Going
it
down.
turns onto 3rd Street, and we're proposing a station in the Publix vicinity, where we already have buses. We have 2 buses that stage there, and
Okay.
I was on the wrong.
All right, that's
Yeah, yeah.
Publix right in the upper left.
right here.
Yeah.
Yep, and we already have a lot of activity here, so there are transfer opportunities. May need a few parking spaces here.
Can I suggest we have some sort of,
North arrows.
even, yeah,
Put an arrow.
even for those of us who live here who don't.
You know what, there may have been, and that is probably my fault because I covered up something here to put that
Wait,
in.
wait, is that it?
If you're,
Oh, wait, no, this is supposed to be the north arrow, I guess.
Okay.
No, it's not the north arrow. That's the
No,
right
that's
arrow.
Going back on
the
First
width.
Avenue North.
Well, no, it can't be. That's-
Those are right of way.
Okay,
arrows.
then I probably covered it up, sorry.
will this be presented to the board?
Yes.
Okay, you might, I find the orientation very difficult.
Having a hard time here.
And maybe up in the corner, you could have a little, where are you,
Inside
which
map,
way
where
are
are
we
you?
going?
Okay, fair
So-
enough,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
fair enough. We actually do have an overview map, but I did not include it in here, but that's a good idea to have it on the same slide as the actual image. And this is 6th Avenue South. And you're right, and they kind of go out of order to the movement of the bus, so we could probably reorder them a little
We
bit.
had an order here where this one was.
What's that?
Yeah, it would help if we always had the side streets too. Or the-
Okay. That's a good point too.
What's
yes.
that building right
This
at
is
the
the
bottom of
U.S.
screen?
Geological Survey,
Yeah,
associated with the USF St. Pete.
right, okay.
I think it's this building, or is it on this side? I think it's on this side.
Which is actually property managed by the
Okay, I see.
St. Pete St. Pete Downtown Partnership.
Really? Huh. We had to be very careful with the station locations because FTA has asked us not even to be in front of a historical resource, a building. So like we had one proposed station location in front of the post office, so we went ahead and just shifted that a little bit because that allows us to avoid that larger historical review at the state level.
But the U.S. Geological Building isn't a historical building?
Apparently
She
not.
wants to the Baker Building?
You can double check that, but the consultants assured me that no other were in front of any historical building. We also, well, is there any other questions on the BRT before we move into this? No.
Okay, so
Okay.
what we were looking at is that dog leg going down,
This.
the blue dog leg going down
Correct.
in the last couple of slides.
Correct. So this is
Okay.
4th Street, 6th Ave South, and 3rd Street. And
The
then,
original intent, still, I think a preferred alternative would to go down First Street,
Mhm.
but the city of St. Petersburg staff is not supportive of that because of the Grand Prix.
Well, it's
Yeah.
true.
Right,
well, you're not able to put in any permanent structure like a station
right.
that can be easily removed for the Grand Prix.
Okay.
But I was thinking our fancy designers could design a movable thing, like Clearwater Beach.
Like a carnival ride, like where you just pull the pins out?
You know, like those
Like a
zippers.
carnival
that
ride.
move.
Exactly. Or a roller coaster at the State Fair over there.
Right,
And,
right.
Well, there were some other benefits of this in that,
The whole thing down with one pin.
there were some other benefits of this in that it does get you closer to the hospitals
Right.
and for those employees that work there.
for the St. Pete students.
So, the Circulator study, originally we were looking at our routes 32, which is a circulator type service that serves mostly seniors and takes them to the Publix, people who live up in here and takes them down to here. And then also the looper and how to streamline those services and possibly combine those services. As we really got into the data and the public outreach, we realized it would be difficult to combine those services and still have an effective circulator. Given that successful circulators are typically pretty short in distance with, no more than like a 20-25 minute trip, operate at 10 to 15 minute frequencies. So as we've moved forward, we're really just looking at how do we streamline this looper service, which would then also provide the foundation for our electric bus service. So it would provide us with the route to test the electric buses in downtown St. Petersburg.
What, is the Dolly okay with that and the Mahaffey, because they're cut out in the revised?
So this is on the existing looper route. This little boot here is us driving, or not us, the looper, driving through the parking lot to get people door front of the Salvador Dali Museum. This causes a lot of operational problems because when there is events, there is someone out there taking money for parking,
Right.
and the bus just has to sit there and wait in that line. So it can add a good 5 to 7 minutes to the trip through that, and it's not really the safest to be having the bus traversing through the parking lot. So we have talked with, we have a couple people from the Dolly. I don't think it was the head of the Dolly.
It was the catering vendor
Mhm.
for the Dolly, who also owns 400 Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And he mentioned that he didn't see an issue with that, and the city staff had agreed to look into better pedestrian connections, so safer, more delineated landscape
Right.
connections.
I was looking at the stop at the Hilton there. I mean, that's pretty good for the soccer stadium.
Yeah.
But it's not so good for the Mahaffey or the Dolly.
It's not as good, yeah.
Yeah, it's not.
So
as-
maybe somewhere closer to the entrance to the Mahaffey parking lot or something like that might be.
Well, it's right side.
Pardon me?
So-
It's right side boarding.
So
right?
these aren't
Okay.
station.
the
Oh,
looper,
yeah,
right?
okay.
These are existing partners. These
Okay.
dots. These are not proposed stops.
Okay.
So we haven't gotten to that yet. This is actually one. We had a lot of alternatives. I think we got up to like 7C or something like that. So we then reached out with system stakeholders in downtown. The Looper Group participated, a lot of their members, some members of the public were there, of the general public. And there's a lot of challenges because the funding structure today is that the funding partners, the dots on the map, pay money to have a stop. So that's part of their funding structure. And so they pay money to have a door front service. So there's a lot of balancing between door front service and maybe a different funding structure that doesn't just say, okay, if you give me this much money, we'll deviate our route. And that's how some of these deviations happen. because they're getting money from a partner. So I think a lot of this is also looking at, and I know Cassandra has talked a lot with the Looper Group and with the St. Pete Downtown Partnership about, is there ways we can look at that funding structure so that we can get to a good service that's still adequately funded. So when we did public outreach, I feel like there was pretty good agreement on this section. This area is where we kind of get into, and this is not the final alternative, this is a draft alternative, but this is representative of an area where we first had an alternative that went straight here, and there was a lot of kind of people saying they really wanted to go a little bit more west. So how far you go west, if you start getting way out here, you're kind of messing up your service, and you're not providing a good circulator.
So Heather mentioned that effective circulators like this have to be very frequent. And in order for us to get the frequency the most cost-effective way, we have to have a singular route. So we're trying to balance out that tourist market with the new residential and employment markets. And so there is some compromise in the way that this is structured, but I think we've come to, through a lot of conversation, something that makes the most sense to meet the majority of most of those markets. The other thing is when we start moving things around for the Looper, we've been trying to help them understand how they can tap into other resources that even we can't. So there are some funding sources that are available to them that we can help them restructure how they put the service together.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think what's interesting to me is when you talk about separating the tourism service from residential, I mean, the Looper, it seems to me, could really potentially have great revenue possibilities by marketing themselves to the tourist and charging a little bit more. Because I know it's not unusual for people to go on vacation or holiday to a new town, and the first thing they do is pay anywhere maybe from $5 to $15 to go on a tour, or a historic tour, or a beach tour, or downtown tour, to get a sense of the environs of the city. And then you hop off, and then you kind of know what you want to check out on your own later. But the Looper is what? They do 50 cents? So,
Yeah, and they do serve that purpose. The Vinoy directs a lot of people to the Looper to do just that. And when we surveyed the riders, a lot of people said they were just riding around. And actually, they don't really serve any of the residential market.
So you could pay $15 or $20 for that.
So the flip side of that is there's tourist areas where this would be free.
And if you go to the next slide,
Yeah.
we're actually proposing the opposite, but good stuff.
Well, what we really think is the Looper could much better serve that growing residential market. And when they started the Looper, there was not this huge residential market that there is today. And so, in the growing employment market too, and the live, work, play market. And, I think, what was it, Councilmember Kennedy said he just wanted a car-free weekend type, environment.
Car-free living. Yeah.
Car-free living environment for a weekend. So the Circulator study from best practices, those recommendations are, like I said earlier, the 10 to 15 minute service. Our consultant, which looks at services all over the country, really recommends a free fare for a Circulator. Right now, the city subsidizes and buys down fares for a free fare portion of the Central Avenue trolley and a reduced fare portion. So one proposal would be that maybe we apply that towards this service instead. That's to be determined. Another part of this is that we are also talking about, and this was some concern in the public about this westward movement, is that we are looking into whether we can have an improved service on the CAT between downtown and Grand Central Station, so that we really can provide very frequent east-west service too, instead of trying to do it all with one route. So all the alternatives we looked at included some improvements to the CAT. And so where we are with this project is at the stage where we're going to start costing out how much this would cost at 10 minutes, at 15 minutes, and then also at longer hours of service. Right now, the Looper does not run very far into the evening and starts, what time does it start, like 10 a.m.? So that also needs to be improved in order to provide that residential market with a service that it can use, and also employee market. So, so we'll be looking at how much these options cost, and then looking at maybe ways that we could fund the service improvements. So that's the current status of that. The electric buses, again, we would use these on the route, and the electric buses would be used to supplement the looper vehicles, so that we can provide the more frequent service without another capital need.
I'm sorry, the electric buses would be used on the Circulator route?
Mm-hmm.
And we were getting 2 buses, so that
Correct.
would be, they would be operating continuously there?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
What vehicles are we using now?
The looper group trolleys.
Okay.
The Looper Group trolleys are a hodgepodge of former PSTA, a few still former PSTA trolleys, and then they've purchased their own trolleys that are very similar to the Jolly trolleys.
Yeah, I've seen
I
them.
think the
Make
city
them.
just approved fund. Did you guys just approve funding for one more?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they're well beyond useful life, I think, the ones that are operating, the other ones.
Well, we've gotten a lot of questions about how to serve the downtown. The downtown is really not that big.
Right.
It's beautiful, it's walkable, it's the best urban space I think we have in the entire region. So, we're getting questions about, what about autonomous vehicles? So ultimately, this route could be used for an autonomous vehicle project, in which case we would redeploy our electrics to other locations, because at that point we would have the data to know what the limitations of those, if there are limitations to those vehicles.
Well-
It would change the looper. I mean, you're changing a lot when you start to put that in
Right.
place, but it's also, just like everything else that we are doing, in the discussion of Clearwater earlier this morning, is we're stepping through the service in this area incrementally, doing the next thing and doing the next thing and doing the next thing, so that when we look 10 years back, we've made a lot of progress. And so I think, even though it seems like it's slow, it's moving forward.
Well, the question, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The question I had on that is, we're gonna be putting a charging station somewhere, and that's gonna be a semi-permanent thing. So if we use the electric buses for a looper type scenario, that may not be far enough away from, the main charging station where we can deploy those buses for other
But we have so many other
Or
routes in
something
downtown
going through downtown.
Mhm.
that we put it on the right street and in the right location, and it's already on another route. I mean,
Okay.
so it can be
All right.
on multiple
Okay, that's all I'm
routes,
asking,
yes.
is if we anticipate growth
Well,
in that regard.
You could put it on the First Avenue South, right there at the turn by the post, right in front of the Tampa Bay Times. Maybe they'd sponsor it.
Okay.
With all their money.
Yeah.
Remember, it's gonna be in the road.
Right.
It's gonna be a little plate
Right,
in the
right,
road.
right.
Yeah.
But it's still, once we do it, we're gonna have to live with it, so we wanna make it in a spot where we can utilize it.
Right, but I think we can
I
think
agree.
through that strategy pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're actually meeting with Duke, I think, next week to start conversations with our coordination with them. So, moving on.
So this is what they're gonna look like?
Heather?
Yeah.
This is what they're gonna look like?
Oh, that's a representation, that's actually pretty old, of a BRT vehicle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we haven't gotten into the actual vehicle.
With a big canopy like that. I don't think it's gonna.
We're not gonna have a big canopy.
Yeah.
No, not a big canopy.
No, the buses,
I
yeah.
thought you meant the vehicle.
Yeah, I did make it.
But we are looking at 60-foot vehicles.
I buried my agenda.
In the middle of it. So that goes back to the multiple boarding rather than going through a single gate.
Are we doing
Right,
this?
you'd have to do
now?
proof of ownership.
I'm not doing that.
No.
Oh, I don't know, I was
Oh,
just trying to be helpful, but I don't know.
Don't confuse me.
No, we're almost done.
Partner
We're almost done.
updates.
So, as you know, the planning department does a lot more than we present to you every month. And so these are just bits and pieces of other things that we're working on. As Heather mentioned, we Brad and Chris and Commissioner Barkley and I went up to Washington last week. We had a couple meetings with the FTA. One was to talk about the National Transit Database and how to make sure that all of our innovation programs through our Mobility on Demand, so our Direct Connect, our TD Late Shift, our Sandbox, can all be counted in NTD. I think this is a bigger national conversation that we are leading. They were very happy to receive our letter and our recommendations, and it's also given us some opportunity to talk to Uber about changing some of the background of what they're giving us so that we can report this to NTD. So I think there will be some significant movement on this issue in the next couple of months. We also met with them about the Central Avenue BRT and gave them an update and asked some questions about some of the details, and they seem quite favorable to what we're doing. We specifically asked them about the business access and transit lanes, meaning the bus lanes that people can make turns in, and they said that was a really great idea because that's the number one thing that people complain about in other projects is the reduction of turns. So I think we're doing a good job there. We have a lot of work that Bonnie is leading with Heather's help on our amenities partnership program. And we've gone beyond just cities of looking at partnerships, but looking at smaller areas of cities. So the city of St. Petersburg, through their Skyway Marina District fund, we're partnering on some new shelters there. We're excited about that. We have found a new opportunity for funding, which is the Community Development Block Grant. So we're working with Pinellas County on putting some Lealman, some shelters in Lealman.
Cancel it.
So, yes, well, anything can happen,
Anything can
right? You've got to
happen.
be ready for everything. And the North County Cultural Alliance, we're also working on some older shelters, turning those into art shelters. In addition to that, we have had some interesting conversations with the city of Largo about their shelters, and we have some ideas about how to take those ad shelters and fulfill the intent of the city commission while still making them maintaining the shelters, but also beautifying them so that they fit within the city's vision of what it would like to see. So we've been researching.
It wasn't kosher.
La 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 la.
Had nothing to do with it.
Yes. So we have been researching some other art options for our shelters. As you know, we meet monthly with the NPO and the DOT here at PSTA, and I think this was something that the Orlando District 5 and Lynx had done, and we adopted it. I think we're the only one in the region who's doing it right now. But these monthly coordination meetings have proven to be wildly successful in that just seeing each other and making the commitment to come together once a month has made a lot of our projects go much better. We also are moving forward with our Sandbox Grant. We met with the FTA team. So the FTA project manager came down with their researcher, which is going to be monitoring all of the Sandbox grants, so all 11 properties that received Sandbox grants are going to be part of this research paper, and so they came down to visit with us and our team, and that was really good. It was a really good meeting. I left when they started talking about the logic model. And then we continued to meet with Hart and the Jacob staff on the regional transit feasibility plan, which is looking at the corridors in the region and how we advance some of those projects that would come out of that study. We have asked specifically that they continue to include the Central Avenue BRT in the discussion, so that it is available for other funding. That may mean that their original 5 projects may turn into 6 because the Central Avenue BRT, although it is assumed that it is moving forward, we don't want anything to change at the federal level and then have us not be in that plan as one of the top projects, as it is coming out as one of the top projects. We'll also let you know that Hart staff is up in DC today actually it's this week, and they are bringing our Central Avenue BRT to discuss with our federal congressional delegation. I think this is really showing how we're working together. And they understand that if our project moves forward, then we're ready for the next project in the region. So that's been a great positive move.
And just to tap on that, so you're aware there's this, the HART is managing this thing called the Premium Transit Study, which started out 2 years ago as look after the CSX proposed selling of the railroad tracks in Pinellas County and then in Tampa up to Pasco County, and then FDOT has provided $1 million to do a premium transit study and assigned it to HART to manage. It's been sort of moving along at a snail's pace. Jacobs Engineering is the consultant that was hired. HART has asked, HART asked that an expanded oversight committee be established. That would include PSTA and HART overseeing the future of the study. They've been giving regular updates to the Tampa Bay TMA group, which meets every other month. But there's been some requests, I think, by the HART board members to expand this so that maybe they're not fully culpable for whatever the results might be. I'm not sure. We've been hesitant about creating another group, another oversight group, and so our recommendation is that this group, the planning committee of PSTA, be the group that receives updates on the premium transit study as it moves forward over the next whatever number of months.
Well, there's a schedule in the attachment. There's a schedule at the back of your packet for the public involvement, and where you will find your role is under the Transit Coalition. So it says committee boards and updates. It says transit. So it's this page right here.
Got it.
And so the Jacobs team may be coming to you to make an appointment to talk to you about what they have so far before we have this joint meeting. But what we intend to do is when Jacobs brings the presentation to the TMA, PSTA staff would bring it to you. So they'll bring their first presentation on the results of their progress will be at the beginning of April. So we'll bring to you their update at your April Planning Committee meeting.
On this public involvement schedule, I know it's year one, but year one would theoretically be which year?
This year, right now.
Okay.
This is 2017?
This is 2017, yes.
And what did you say we're called?
The Transit Coalition.
Transit Coalition asterisk?
Yeah, so
Okay.
the partner agency board updates is staff, your staff bringing it to each individual board. So HART staff will bring HART, PSTA staff will bring it to PSTA, Pasco to Pasco. The Transit Coalition is all of those committees within each organization coming together. So essentially a transit TMA. So if the planning committee meets with the planning committee of HART and probably the committee of the whole for Pasco, that might be a transit coalition meeting. We've tried to minimize those because what we really all need is another meeting. But we'll bring the updates to you here and then take your comments back to the technical team.
Is there sort of a sunset on this thing, or a date when a final report is due?
Well, there's no requirement for this, but I think they says 18 to 24 months. So there's a year or two in this, I think, which would be the post-implementation.
There was a concept, which I don't know if it's still embedded, but this discussion of a potential regional NPO someday has become a study of how to best define a regional MPO, kicking off with a workshop on May 12th of Forward, Pinellas, Hillsborough MPO, and Pasco MPO. But the idea was that the study on how to develop a regional MPO would be completed about the exact same time as this study would be completed, so that the new regional MPO could be designed to best implement whatever this study came out. I know that that's what WIT has said. So hopefully those will move forward on parallel tracks, because that sounds like a good idea.
Maybe Sarah's got something to add.
You know, it seems like things are moving along, so that's good. Yeah.
The only thing I could add to that is I think T-BARTA is hosting this kickoff meeting in May, the workshop, and there are invitations, I'm sure we can get it to you if you'd like one, so you can be involved in the kickoff. And there is going to be another workshop, I believe, later on in the process to talk about the results and where we go, if it's a regional MPO, if it's different components,
Yeah.
what the
Maybe
next
we
steps
may not,
are.
I will tell you this from the technical work we've seen so far, none of this will be shocking.
They basically put together the 55 other plans.
Great. Yes, Bill.
The last TMA meeting, and then at the Forward Pinellas meeting, there was some discussion about this and trying to do the public outreach. The ACPT committee, when that prior to Greenlight, didn't expand out beyond the committee members. And so I hope that this doesn't happen here. We need to be able to take whatever we're hearing here and provide an update to our full board and have our board be able to make a discussion so they feel at least a part of the process rather than ACPT where the board was very, very disconnected with that. The other thing that I'm not sure that I understand is what is this regional transit feasibility plan? What are the objectives of the corridor identification rather than just, well, the consultants are coming up with a theoretical best transit routes, but what are we trying to implement in the region? The Tampa Bay Partnership keeps talking about, well, we've got to do this, but what are you trying to do it for? And I haven't heard that out of the consultants so far.
The goal is to get federally competitive projects out of the region that we can all support. And I think that's why their focus has been on the one project that is in the federal pipeline right now is the Central Avenue BRT. That is the only project in the region that is currently seeking federal funds. That is really the goal of this. So there may be projects that are competitive for state funds and that may be a byproduct of this, but their main goal is to create federally competitive projects and for us to work as a region to put projects up to the feds in a consolidated way.
Inter-county.
Yes.
But
not all of the projects are out of the county. Some of them are regionally significant without being outside a single, being in a single county.
Some of the projects of this.
it almost sounds like, and I know it wasn't meant this way, is we're just trying to get federal money, not we're trying to accomplish some overall strategy for the region of using transit to create a better life for.
Well, I'm sure that's not the outward-facing message.
Right, but it's
yes.
got I think
Sure.
we need to articulate the connection to the Tampa Bay Partnership or in the Bay Area legislative delegations goals for transit in this region. And it may be the same, but it may be different, but let's at least make that connection.
Right.
I think one of the challenges is one of the things that we've seen so far is just, the bill and amendment language from Senator Latbala's proposal to change the governance of T-BARTA, and when you're looking at that specific language, there's nothing about funding. So it kind of leaves us scratching our heads that, you know, what T-BARTA needs is a funding mechanism. It just makes it where it's not really clear what the proposed changes, what they're getting at. But what Cassandra just explained was, you know, we need that kind of overlay, we need that kind of message from Senator Latvala, or better messaging from the Tampa Bay Partnership, that the goal is federally competitive projects. Because otherwise it just seems like it's a board shakeup, and we've had the same conversation for many, many years, and here we are now still talking about reforming T-BARTA, but not talking about its lack of funding.
Well, and if I may, it's not only federal funding, but the local match.
Yeah.
How do we get the local match, even if it's only 20%? I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
probably going
Yeah.
to be 50%, but how do we do that unless there's something done differently with T-BARTA? T-BARTA has all the power in the world it needs to run a wonderful transit system, except for funding.
Right.
Yes.
Well, to be federally competitive, there are two sides of it. There's the project justification and there's the financial plan. And I think what they're focusing on right now is the project justification. So, you know, is this a technically viable project? And then the other piece of it as to whether it actually moves forward is the funding. And so that is the secret sauce that the Central Avenue BRT has, is we are moving forward. We have the commitment of the local funds within our budget, and it is an extremely competitive project. And so you have those two pieces. Out of this plan, I think that they could come up with what is the next technically competitive project, but the individual county that it is in, or the individual project sponsor would need to come up with that local funding source just the same.
And it should be noted that the Orlando area has Sunrail 100% funded by the state. 100%. Minimal local match.
Well,
And
after seven-
Tri-Rail, back in the 1990s, 100%, no local money in implementing Tri-Rail. South Florida RTA was created, but ultimately still gets $40 million a year as a line item from the state of Florida.
There are different things that happen during each one of those projects, and I would say that South Florida was probably the most creative in creating Tri-Rail, if you think of it that way, because the department created Tri-Rail as a maintenance of traffic while they were redoing the interstate, and then it was maintained. So there's that the history part of how that came to be, and I think that Orlando, the Sunrail, each of the local jurisdictions made a commitment. It was not a commitment out of the transit authority per se. It was the counties and the city of Orlando that put money forward, but the DOT paid for the first 7 years of operations. You know, so there's things that other regions, and what the point that Brad's making is that there are commitments that the department has made to other major regions within the state of Florida that they have yet to make here.
Exactly.
And we should figure out how to act.
We need to be ready.
Yes,
Yeah,
but we need to be all on the
Because we
same
are.
page on what we're asking for, and I think this is, although this conversation has happened several times before, this is the next, what comes out of this could be something that we could all get behind.
We should be next.
And
almost.
and using those two examples, there is a reason to doing those two projects other than just getting federal funding. It was the maintenance of traffic for I-4 and the maintenance of traffic for I-95. So what is the driver here locally? It's probably something different, but to really articulate what we're hearing from that related to our ability to be economically competitive in the long run to support the funding, the local funding side.
Just as like thinking out loud of things that might come out of this project. right? I mean, there's the discussion so far and the presentations that I've seen from the consultant have been, you know, we're focusing on the federal dollars. They're still doing the technical work to inform some other projects that may not be something that you would go after federal dollars, but things that the state could get behind. I mean, what's to say that the state couldn't fund express bus in the TBX? I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer to ask for the state. Is there something else that we could ask for the state that would be a bigger project? I think those are the kinds of things that could come out of the study, but also not be the original intent, but still be a great byproduct.
No, I'm good, thank you.
All right, anything else on this?
Well, I just think that there's a reason for doing this to improve the region and our ability to be sustainable. And that reason needs to come forward along with how do we get federal funding. But that reason, and
Perhaps part of that, what did you call it? Transit Coalition can discuss that and come up with a rationale that doesn't sound like we're just trying to get money.
because that was a thing in Greenlight that didn't get firmly established in the foundation to take it forward.
Right, and realistically, there is no federal money without that project justification.
Right.
So it's just improved messaging on our part.
The only minimal solution that we've come up with so far to doing that is not creating a new ACPT, but having this planning committee serve as the group,
We
so
appreciate that.
they can connect to the full PSTA board.
That's good. All right,
Okay.
are we adjourned?
Sounds
then?
great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We were finding out why the website,
Which attachments?
like this stuff. During the legislative warrant on the website.
Oh, they weren't?
Yeah.
So is it like a separate?
I know I put my quote somewhere.
or is it
That I
like
don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That I don't know.
So that's,
Well,
I don't know if it'll throw off any hearings. We have to get everything ready.
Yeah, I mean, we're still scheduled to present at the end of June.